recession, climate chaos, unemployment, insecurity, poverty and hopelessness. And leaders meeting in London must supply the oxygen of confidence to today's global economy to give people in all our countries renewed hope for the future. Our first test, I said, we must clean up the banking system, curb the use of tax havens, introduce principles for pay and bonuses, so instead of banks serving themselves, they serve the people. Our second task is that we must take the action necessary to prevent any suffering, as we've seen in the past, of mass long-term unemployment, and we must create and save more than 20 million jobs. And thirdly, by international economic cooperation, we must reshape the global financial system for new times, so that with early warnings and proper precautions, we can prevent crises like this happening again. And fourth, we must avoid the mistakes of the 1930s and not descend into protectionism and isolationism. And fifth, we must press ahead with the low-carbon revolution. And we must never, ever forget our obligations to the poor. Just yesterday, I received a letter from Pope Benedict reminding the G20 that positive faith in the human person, and above all, as he said, faith in the poorest men and women of Africa and other regions of the world affected by extreme poverty, is what is needed if we are going to get through this crisis. And I can confirm today that even while others may use this financial crisis as an excuse to retreat from their promises to the poorest, nothing will divert the United Kingdom from keeping to our commitments to the Millennium Development Goals and to our promises of development and aid. And so today I think I speak for all the leaders of the G20. The duty of leadership is to identify, to name and then help shape the changes of this new global age in the interests of all people. And so we will completely reject the idea that the only thing we can do in face of a recession is to let it run its course and to do nothing, as if the economy operated according to iron laws and the only role of men and women is to live by these laws and what the laws dictate. This is to demean our humanity, because there are always options, always choices, always solutions that human ingenuity can summon. A few years ago, when economists were pressing the most dogmatic of free market policies on some of the poorest countries in the world, they argued it by saying, "Tina, there is no alternative." But African people came up with a shorthand of their own. Not Tina, but Themba, short for "there must be an alternative." And in that cry, Themba, we hear everything that must guide us today, because while it was an acronym, it was also the Zulu word for the most important thing that humans can have: hope. Themba, the confidence, conviction and certainty that where there are problems, there are always solutions, and we do not need to accept the defeatism of doing nothing. It is a conviction that through pursuing cooperation and internationalism, we need never return to the isolationism and protectionism of the past. And it is the certainty that there is always an alternative to fear of the future, and what conquers fear of the future is our faith in the future. Faith in who we are and what we believe, in what we are today and what we can become. Faith, most of all, in what together we can achieve. So we are not here to serve the market. It is here to serve every one of our communities. Governed by rules which reflect our morality, it is our best hope of a better world. Let us imagine that world together. Let us fight for it together. And then with faith in the future, let us build it together. For the world we build tomorrow will be born in the hopes we share and agree upon today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And do keep the questions flowing in. I've just received the first tranche. But now we have the privilege of welcoming and listening to the Right Honourable Kevin Rudd, Prime Minister of Australia. It wouldn't be too strong to say that the election of Kevin Rudd constituted something of an Obama moment for that country, and he has a reputation as a politician who takes ethics very, very seriously. The Prime Minister of Australia.
Honoured guests, honoured friends, people of good heart, good mind and good conscience gathered here at St Paul's. It's fitting that we gather today in this great cathedral to reflect together on the great events of our time. In the 1400 years that Christians have gathered on this site, they've met together to reflect on the great events of their time, on the significance of those events across the tide and times of humankind, and on the great moral question across all the challenges of all the centuries, namely, what then should be done? There is a tendency for each generation to regard the challenges of their time as somehow unique. There is, however, something tempering about the history of this great place, given its great history. When we remember that those who have gone before us here have endured invasions, civil war, devastating fire, a Great Depression, and then a total war which rained death from the skies. This disciplines us, therefore, through the disciplines of history, to see the challenges of today across the span of time. We are, however, living through events today which are questioning the economic orthodoxy of our age and the human values that have shaped that orthodoxy. And one of those values is trust. We are asked today, at the onset of the worst economic recession since the Depression, to reflect on the axiom, "My word is my bond." I'm advised this was the motto formally inscribed on the coat of arms of the London Stock Exchange in 1923, just 6 years before the onset of the Great Depression. The truth is, sometime last September, something almost audibly cracked in the public's trust in our financial markets. Stock market values around the world collapsed. Since then, they have lost more than half their value. Since then, more than 30 of the world's biggest banks have either collapsed or been bailed out. And the reverberations across the broader financial system continue